Hello, my name is John Daly, and welcome to my presentation on advancing resource equity at MPES. This plan outlines actions to address financial and human resource disparities to ensure equitable access to learning for all students. At MPES, this action plan is designed to address inequities in both financial and human capital allocation. As a Title I school, we're continually balancing resources to meet a wide range of student needs, from academic intervention to multilingual support. The goal is to make our systems for funding and staffing transparent, data-driven, and aligned with equity. This work builds on my earlier teacher equity audit using Skurla et al., which helped identify where we were strong and where gaps still exist. From there, I drew on Gertz and Ladd, who highlighted how equitable funding structures can advance fairness in schools, and Travers, who emphasizes that true equity requires aligning people, time, and money to student need. Together, these frameworks provide the foundation for this action plan and for our ongoing work to make sure every student at MPES has access to resources and opportunities they deserve. At MPES, we've seen a steady rise in students who need extra help, especially in reading and math. The challenge is that our per pupil funding hasn't changed, so our staff and resources are being stretched thinner each year. This creates gaps in how we consistently provide interventions across grade levels. Research from Darling, Hammond, and Baker tells us that when funding doesn't keep up with the student needs, learning opportunities start to look very different from classroom to classroom. And Travers remind us that real equity happens when we align our people, time, and money with what students actually need. That's why this issue has to be addressed. It's about giving every child the support they deserve. To fix this, my plan focuses on being smarter and more intentional with our resources. We'll move toward a needs-based allocation model that uses data from RTI and NJSLA to guide where funding and staff time go. We'll also create a transparency dashboard so that everyone can see how our budget connects to our equity goals. And at the district level, I'll be advocating for a weighted funding formula so that schools with higher needs, like ours, receive proportional support. This plan isn't just about more money, it's about using what we have in ways that truly make a difference. At MPES, resource equity means making sure our funding decisions match our students' needs. With rising enrollment and more students needing intervention, we plan to reallocate Title I and ESSER funds to increase RTI and multilingual learner support. We're also redirecting discretionary funds to expand culture-responsive materials and technology to strengthen Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. Following Skurla and Travers, we'll conduct a biannual equity review to ensure that every financial decision reflects our commitment to aligning people, time, and money. At MPES, professional development is designed to meet teachers where they are and build capacity from within. Our tiered approach provides equitable learning opportunities for all staff, from mentoring new teachers through the school improvement team, facilitating equity-focused PLCs that analyze instructional practices and their impact on diverse learners. Our interventionists and academic coaches will lead data literacy and culture responsive practice trainings, helping gen ed teachers strengthen how they support struggling students. We will also focus on equitable grading and resource use, ensuring that every professional learning experience connects directly to improving classroom instruction. At MPES, our equity work is deeply connected to improving student learning. When we think about resource allocation, we will focus on how each decision impacts the classroom. One of our top priorities has been strengthening Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports so that students who need additional help receive instruction that's culturally responsive and personalized to their needs. Gay reminds us that when teachers connect learning to students' cultural backgrounds and lived experiences, they increase engagement and academic success. We've also worked hard to improve collaboration between general and special education programs. Banks calls this empowering school culture, where shared responsibility and inclusion ensure that all students can access high quality instruction. A big part of this effort is our cultural literacy book rotation, now in its third year. Each grade level reads a culturally relevant book once a month, paired with discussion lessons designed by our SCIP team. These lessons help students see themselves in the curriculum and develop empathy and understanding for others. By sharing this initiative with the district, I plan to advocate for expanding it system-wide so that every school can benefit from a more inclusive approach to literacy. At MPES, I see leadership as both moral and transformative. Theo Harris describes social justice leaders as those who face inequities directly to create inclusive schools, and that's what I strive to do each day. Equity work isn't just about policy, it's about daily actions. listening to teachers, supporting fair decisions, and keeping students at the center of every discussion and choice. I also connect with Heifetz's idea of adaptive leadership, which means helping people manage change and uncertainty. This is a big part of my role, which I believe is creating a space for honest dialogue and guiding staff through challenges. Finally, self-awareness is essential. Urich reminds us that leaders who reflect on their impact build stronger relationships and healthier cultures. At MPES, I try to model that through openness, reflection, and a willingness to learn alongside my staff. True leadership to me is about modeling the equity and empathy we expect from others. At MPES, community engagement is central to our equity work. We bring teachers, families, students together to identify needs and share ideas through focus groups, newsletters, and student reflection forums. Our partnerships with the PTA, local businesses, United Way, and our neighborhood church ensure that every student has the resources they need to succeed. We also support the local food bank and animal shelters, host work-study students from the high school, which I believe these efforts reflect Bank's idea of empowering school culture again, one built on collaboration and inclusion. And lastly, Gay's emphasis on building caring, culturally responsive relationships between schools and their communities. Together, these partnerships truly turn equity into a shared responsibility at MPES that lives beyond the classroom. When presenting this action plan to the school board, I plan to highlight both the moral and fiscal responsibility of equitable funding. The data from our teacher equity audit and the RTI caseloads increase show that while instructional quality remains strong, the number of students needing support continues to rise. As a Title I school, now sharing limited funds with another building or other buildings, it's essential that resources are aligned directly to student need. This plan proposes a more balanced budget model and an annual equity review to ensure transparency and impact. To measure the success of this action plan, we'll have to look beyond the numbers and focus on meaningful indicators such of equity. Increased access to RTI and multilingual supports will show that resources are reaching those students who need the most. We'll have to monitor student growth on the NJSLA assessments and benchmarking and progress monitoring throughout the year, but also listen to our staff through annual surveys on resource fairness and support. We hope that we see lower turnover among our new teachers, and this will reflect the impact of our mentoring and professional development. And finally, our annual equity review will help us ensure that progress isn't a one-time goal, but it's a part of our ongoing commitment. Lastly, equity is not just an initiative, it's a commitment. By aligning our people, time, money to our student needs, MPES can ensure success for every learner. Thank you for listening.